For the past 10 years, the post-Fergie era, Man United have been awful and substandard. They have only won 3 trophies in those 10 years, with the FA Cup in 2015-16, Europa League and League Cup in 2016-17 season. That's still 3 more than trophies that Tottenham has won, but United are on a different level to Spurs. They operate differently, so United are held to a higher standard. I put this down to 2 main reasons. Firstly, it's their awful manager hires, and second, it's their awful transfer strategy. Both are interlinked of course, but let's analyse further the journey into failure. Firstly, it is their asinine manager hires that have really failed them. I will go through each manager they have hired since Sir Alex Ferguson and explain why it never made sense. Not because of hindsight, but the fact that it was bloody clear from the start that these managers were never going to work out for Man United. Firstly, you have David Moyes, who was chosen to take over from Sir Alex Ferguson as manager. Moyes had managed Everton for 10 years, doing kind of decent and achieving stability, but he'd never managed any superstars or won them trophies. But fine, Sir Alex chose David Moyes himself to be his successor. But Moyes' reign lasted for around 8 months. It was a disaster for United. Sir Alex, with his old school mindset, thought here's a fellow Glaswegian who has sustained 10 years of stability at a club. Now he just needs to bring that stability to Man United, just like Fergie himself did from Aberdeen to Man United. But it never worked out. It was a romantic idea from Sir Alex, but he got it completely wrong. And United had hope to redeem themselves with the next manager hire, free from Fergie's influence, hopefully. So the next manager hire was 64-year-old Louis van Gaal. With the Moyes hire, their old school mindset from Fergie hurt them and damaged them. So what did? They hired an even more old school manager. Yes, Van Gaal is a legendary manager, but this man was so old that he used to feud with Johan Cruyff back in 1991 when Van Gaal managed Ajax and Cruyff managed Barcelona. Also, if the United hierarchy had any idea about football history and knowledge, they would know about all the drama Van Gaal used to have with all his past players and coaches. So did the 64-year-old Van Gaal have success with United? Not much. In 2 years on the job, they finished 4th in the first season and 5th in the second season. But they did manage to win the FA Cup. They tried to play a more attractive football, the Dutch total football way, but it never really worked out, and Van Gaal was sacked 2 days after his FA Cup victory. The drama continues. United's third hire was Jose Mourinho. While Van Gaal was egoish and brash management style that never worked with the United players, so United decided to hire the most egotistical, most brash manager of them all in Jose Mourinho. Once again, the United hierarchy appeared to be just making the job hires without much research. They don't assess the current fit, they don't assess the current football climate, where European football is heading, what's best for the squad. No, they just hired a manager based off his name and status. Mourinho lasted 3 years at the job, and those 3 years were full of drama, falling out with players, falling out with media, but they did experience some success winning the League Cup and Europa League. But in doing so, United had turned toxic. The fans were mad at the style they were playing. Jose was falling out with all the players, all the media, and they were not happy because he wasn't playing the United way, so he was sacked in his first season. Their next hire was probably the worst of the lot. Yes, it was former United player Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. This hire was so bad, my 14-year-old cousin who plays Football Manager could have told you to hire a better manager. But the United hierarchy, who are clearly run by idiots, decided to give Ole the main job. Remember, during the Jose Mourinho era, United became toxic and they stopped playing the United way. Well, Ole, while underperforming with the squad, was praised for bringing back that good feeling, the United values back. But clearly, tactically, Ole was useless as a manager. His past managerial experience was getting relegated with Cardiff, then going to Molde in Norway, but apparently this was enough to land the Manchester United job. Now Ole lasted the longest out of all the previous managers in 3.5 years, but he produced no trophies, and after a shambolic start to the 2021-2022 season with Ronaldo in his team, he was sacked. So this leads up to now the current manager they've hired to replace Ole, and it isn't even a permanent manager, it's a temporary one in Ralf Rangnick, the father of Gegenpress. Yes, this man who was director of football for Lokomotiv Moscow and RB Leipzig, he's the man chosen to lead Man United. The man who hasn't managed a football team in 8 years, just been a sporting director, he's been the next successor. Yes, the plan is for him to become the footballing director for United in the summer and hire a permanent manager, but it just feels like United are repeating the same mistakes. We will wait to find out how Ralph does at United, but it's not looking great. Another thing about Man United is the fans and ex-players, they really do kill themselves with their mindset and expectations. 30 years of success has really given them brain damage. When Solskjaer was in the job, no one wanted him fired even though he was underperforming, because out of respect to an ex-United legend. Once he had finally been hired, Gary Neville and many others were saying not to hire the only world-class manager that was available in Antonio Conte, because apparently he doesn't play the United way, which I thought was a dumb way to look at it. If you gave Antonio Conte these group of Man United players in Ronaldo, Varane, Bruno, Sancho, Rashford, he would be doing as well as Liverpool and Chelsea and challenging for the title. But they chose Ralf Rangnick, another left field hire just like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was, and now they hope to have success just like Ralf Rangnick had success with Schalke and Leipzig and Lokomotiv Moscow. Because Antonio Conte wasn't good enough, they needed the former Schalke manager, Leipzig sporting director and Lokomotiv Moscow sporting director. So the ricochet of hiring the wrong manager constantly is that the player recruitment doesn't also work out. Different managers come with different styles of football and players aren't able to feel and mesh with the squad as properly. Right, so by my calculation, since 2013-2014, which was the first season after Sir Alex Ferguson left, United have spent a whopping £1.3 billion on players alone. Now in comparison, Man City has spent just a bit more in 1.45 billion, but they've won so many trophies, that money spent was justified. Chelsea since that period has spent the same amount as Man United in around 1.3 billion, but they've also had success, so that money is justified. Then the rest of the big teams have spent much less money than United did. Liverpool spent 830 million, Arsenal spent around 830 million too, and Spurs have spent 790 million. So therefore the stats are just really telling. United have spent a lot of money, one of the highest, and they have not got the trophies that Chelsea, City and Liverpool have had. And as much as the criticism as the board deserves, no one can accuse them of not getting the checkbook out and splashing the cash. It's just they do it very stupidly. So just to name a few of the big signings that never worked out, you've got Lukaku, Pogba, Van der Beek, Di Maria, Martial, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Fred. These are all 50 million plus signings and they're all just flopped. Now I'm going to pick out two of those names to illustrate how wrong United's transfer strategy has been. First, you look at Fred, a Brazilian DM they bought for 50 million, right? And in the same summer, Liverpool also bought a Brazilian DM for around 50 million. So within a month, two of the teams, Liverpool, United, Brazilian DM, 50 million pounds. United's one is Fred, and he's not lived up to his tag price. The fans hate him, and they usually have him as a scapegoat for a lot of their bad performances. But you just got to think, who sanctioned this buy? Who done their research and decided Fred was the Brazilian DM they needed? Now the other Brazilian DM signed by Liverpool for the same amount was Fabinho, and he's been world class as a DM. How good has he been for Liverpool? So that's just the comparison of United's way and Liverpool's way. And now to keep the comparisons going, secondly, you have one of the most disastrous signings ever in Harry Maguire, who United paid an outrageous £80 million for. Possibly one of the worst signings ever. Maguire is a good player, right? But he moves slower than a fridge. And then once again, you look across Liverpool, they paid £80 million for a defender also in Virgil van Dijk, and he changed the fortunes for them. So United saw that and thought, yeah, we're going to copy their model. We're going to spend 80 million on a centre-back we think that looks good, and he's going to do the same effect for us. And he just hasn't. Maguire has been a flop for United. They made him captain after 1 year, which was another terrible decision. So in conclusion, those are the reasons I laid out for Man United's failures in the past 9-10 years. But what does appear to be the common thread amongst those failures is that the club hierarchy are the real reasons, because they're making those decisions, the managers and the player recruitment. The hierarchy are the one that sanction these crazy overpayments for these underperforming players. They're the ones who's hired these completely different managers at the wrong time, not knowing what they want from the squad. Truly, they are the ones to blame for ruining Man United, the Glazers and Ed Woodward. Now this must be so hard for United fans to watch this period. They experienced such level of glory for 3 decades, and now they have to endure this while their closest rivals Man City and Liverpool fighting for all the glory. However, football does work in cycles, and I'm sure United will eventually get it right and start winning again. Thank you for tuning in. Leave a comment on why you think United have failed. Comment, like, subscribe, all of that. Thank you.